Rogue Record.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to Hustle Makes It Happen, a podcast about the grit, the determination, and the mindset it takes to become a winner. Success is not an accident. It lives outside your comfort zone, in the trenches, where excuses are met by brick walls. So strap in, tighten up, and let's get ready to hustle. What's up, hustlers? Welcome to another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen. Before we break off into our guest today, we want to talk about if you get value out of our content, please help us grow. Share the show.
Share the show.
Share the show.
It's that easy.
We put this out for you guys to grab stories of hustle-minded individuals out in the world. We want to bring them to this platform, let you grow in your mindset and what you're doing out in the world. So that is the purpose and the intent of this, and we're having a blast doing it.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun.
This is great.
We've dropped 2 episodes so far at the time that we're recording this, and you guys have done an amazing job. We reached over 500 views on our first episode, so huge thank you for that.
Wow.
We're trying to build something up from scratch, but like Chase said, you guys that are watching or listening, if you get a little bit of value from the show, just help us out. Give us a share, send us a review. Today, Miss Jamie Glas, the Queen of Sparkles. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for coming.
So I knew a little bit about your past and who you were, one, because a lot of the female population of Baton Rouge loves wearing Queen of Sparkles. And I've seen your jackets and and the content that you put out in the world and your clothes and your fashion, so I figured you would be a great guest because that does not happen overnight and it does not happen by accident.
No, and little did you know that there's a lot of twists and turns to get there.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
as we were reading through the questionnaire that we had you prepare, like exactly what you said, I think I know I for sure didn't realize, but like you got a really, really good story about grinding and hustling and like just absolutely like demolishing your way through life to get to where you are. And it was inspirational to see where you were, but it's so much more inspirational to read what you had to do to get there. And those are the things that we want to talk about today.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit, just brief bio about you and where you're from and just a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah. So I was born in Baton Rouge, grew up, I went to U-High my whole life. And then, as most U-High people do, I went on to LSU. I grew up just going to football games and being a huge LSU fan. So I've always loved sports. But I've also always loved clothes. I remember when I was a kid, my favorite color is green. Weirdly enough, I don't wear a lot of green. I'm wearing all pink right now, but
with sparkles.
It was of course with sparkles. I always loved sparkles, but when I was a kid, I would like pitch a fit if my mom dressed me in anything not green. So always like clothing always like identified with me, or I felt like it kind of protected me, or it made me. It started my day to like get dressed, and what you wore, I always it kind of fit my mood and how I was gonna act that day. So always loved clothes, but then went to LSU and I had parents, my mom was a very strong woman. She was a financial advisor for 45 years. She just retired in December and she's 70. I know.
Career.
Yeah. So you can see where I get a lot of the hard work from. But anyway, she kind of said growing up, she was pretty traditionalist. So she said, you're good at math. You should be an engineer. You don't need to be doing anything in fashion. You can't make a career of that. And I said, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, it does seem like a pretty cutthroat place. You see all these shows when you're a kid, like The City, and, not many people make it in fashion. So I thought, okay, well, I can use my brains. I can become an engineer and then see where that takes me. So worked hard in school. I mean, that's kind of the theme, right? Whatever you're doing, even if it's not exactly what you want to be doing, you got to work hard. You got to hustle at it. So I did that and got a great job with Chevron out of college, and I moved to Houston. And while I was working there, that's when I started to wear the big baggy FRC jumpsuits when you go and, on site to the drill rigs and things. And I thought, wow, this there's no reason that this isn't fitting me. You know, there's a lot of women that I work with that are petite like I am, or that actually care about what they're wearing. You know, it is technically a quote unquote uniform. You grow up wearing uniforms in school. You don't really want to. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But, you know, you have to wear this every day. And so at least it should fit you so you're not, you know, getting caught on equipment or something that could be an actual safety hazard. So I started looking into it. I had a really cool boss. That's another thing about hustling. If you have good mentors and champions, you can go a lot further.
Yes.
So it's always great to like give back to younger people like that as well. But I had a boss that was like, yeah, sure. If you can figure out how to make it and it's like up to the NFPA standards, you can wear it. So I made a jumpsuit, and then other girls said, hey, we want one. And so then I found a pattern making company and kind of came up with some designs, started calling around on the weekends or like early in the morning looking for FRC fabric. I'll plug this company called Mount Vernon Mills. They're out in North Carolina, and they were the only ones who ever took my phone calls. You know, we're just a cool made in U.S. local, you know, FR fabric mill.
Right.
So started Hot Work. That was my first company that I ever launched while I was still working as an engineer. And then I did that for a couple of years and started to realize, well, I can't be calling on the weekends and in the mornings anymore. Like, business takes place from 8 to 5 every day. So it's like, it's setting me back because these people aren't calling me back till later. So then I said, and, you know, talking about quitting, I quit my first job. I walked into my boss's office and I was like, you know what? If I don't ever do this, then I'll regret it the rest of my life. Like, I have to give this a try. I'll give myself a year or so, and if I can't, you know, I can always find a job back in the industry. Nowadays, it's a little different. Back then, the oil price was still high. Well, I guess it is high now, but, you know, I could have gotten a job, you know, back in the industry. So I quit, and then full-time focused on Hot Work and grew that company up, and about 2 years later, it was acquired by a big company.
So we all three work in the petrochemical engineering side, not in the engineering, but in the industry on production. So we know the puff marshmallow suits that everyone wears. We're we don't get fashionable ones, but we understand why you took that route. Being that you had a love of fashion.
Yeah, it's an interesting market for sure.
So when you did that, you started Hot Work and you quit on the engineering side. Tell us a little bit about that more in depth. How did that mindset go? You went to school for 4+ years probably. So now you're transitioning into following literally the unknown, jumping off the cliff to try to figure all this out.
Yeah, and you know, and I don't know if you guys have stayed with the same company or not, but that's another kind of business topic for, I feel like, our generation, because like I said, my mother worked for the same company for 45 years. And that's what I saw. That's what I knew. And when I went to work for Chevron, this big multinational company, which is a great company, I'm not saying anything about that. You know, they woo you with this pension and all these things that you right?
It makes it comfortable.
It's comfortable, exactly.
We all three work for Exxon.
Oh, okay, so you guys know, y'all know, and so I was right there with you. I thought I remember.
It's a safe bet.
It's a safe bet.
It's a very safe bet.
And they give you, I mean, there's tons of perks. Like it was a great life. I mean, you guys don't get 980s, but I was getting 980s. That was pretty cool. You got every other Friday off. You know,
Nice.
I know Exxon doesn't, or
we're in the shift.
Yeah, so y'all are shift work anyway. But
nice.
but so you know, I think it's a great career, and so it's hard. But I actually had I didn't mention this when I was kind of filling everything out, but I had a mentor when I worked at Chevron. Her name was Melody Meyer, and she was when she retired, she had made it furthest up of any woman in Chevron. I think she was like the president of Chevron Asia and Africa, maybe, or it was like of a company with under the corporation. Right, yeah, she was the president. And when she retired, and now she's on the board of BP and a couple other companies. But she kind of she met me kind of early on, and I would go to a lot of her like talks and things like that. And when I was starting Hot Work, she remembered working in Thailand, and it wasn't actually the FRCs that she had an issue with, but she was an executive, so she wore suits. And she said, you know, she'd have to give these presentations all the time, and like no suits were made with like enough pockets or enough like functionality for her to like travel and then put it on. And so she'd find these tailors in these local tie places and get them to make special suits for her. So we kind of connected on that front. And she told me when I was kind of looking at leaving, she said, if you can make this company something that is more lucrative than, you know, what you're doing day to day with Chevron, she was like, this will be a better future for you. And this is coming from someone who stayed there forever. She said the freedom as a mother, you know, one day if you have aspirations to be a mother and like all of these things that women want, you will end up being happier rather than, you know, what I did. She was like, sure, I have a fat retirement right now and I'm doing great. Yeah, this girl is doing fine. But she said, if you can do that on your own, that's definitely something that will end up being more rewarding in the end. And
I think we can all feel every bit of sentiment that you just put out on the air, because we all struggle and fight with those things as well. And I think a lot of corporate-driven, successful people, and then people that have that entrepreneur spirit, they tussle with this all the time, leaving the safe space to go jump off the cliff and figure out, is this going to work?
Yeah, and I think most people that are successful in a corporate world also have an entrepreneurial spirit, because you're climbing the ladder because you're finding the things that people aren't looking for. You're not just like riding the, you know, wave. You're being successful because you're finding things other people aren't seeing, and that's the entrepreneurial spirit that you have.
So Hot Works at what point in its infancy? Was it lucrative yet? Were you like starting to take off? Were you in the middle ground before you jumped?
So it was very much in the infancy when I jumped. I only saw a glimmer of hope. I had gone to one trade show. So, you know, in the industry, we go to trade shows a lot. They still take place a lot in that business of FRC clothing. So I went to a trade show. I remember I took a week off of work. I was still working. And my mom and dad were my two sales reps at the trade show, because no one else could take off work. It was in the middle of the summer. And it was out in Denver, and we set up our booth. And I remember I made fake name tags that said a different last name because I didn't want people knowing they were my parents. Like, I wanted to give it credibility, and so I wanted them to think like my mom and dad were just like really working for me. Yeah, oh yeah. And so I was like, whatever you do not, and obviously my parents, I have great parents, they're very proud of me. I was like, don't go off on the tangent about how proud you are. Like, just stick with the plan. Like, this is the flex suit, Dad. And of course, that didn't work out. But at that show, I had not one bit of production. All I had was samples that this pattern maker had made, like 30 samples. And I spent all my savings on these samples. And I had no idea how they were going to get made. And I knew nothing. But I just knew if I go there, someone there is going to know someone. I'm going to get some kind of connection. And that's what happened. I ended up meeting a guy, and he was like, I can make these for you in Mexico, you know, like, and that's how I got my first production order. So yeah, that was when right after that, just because it was just the interest in it that I thought.
So you left pretty early.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, my safety net was, you know, it was in summer 2016, people were still hiring. And so I thought if all else fails, I've worked in the industry now over 5 years. I'm a woman, you know, which does have some benefits at least as an engineer. And so hopefully I can find something, even if it's local to Louisiana or wherever it is, like I can find a job. You know, I have good grades, like I have a good resume. So
do you think that was important to have that safety net there, to have that to fall back on?
Yeah, I think so. I can't lie and say that I know exactly what it feels like to have none of that, you know, or to not have a good family that's there as well. But I took it very seriously that I wanted to do it on my own. You know, I wanted to use my own savings. I didn't really want to get investment from friends and family, you know, because of course people always offer that. That gets into partnerships and other issues, but
and you did take on a partner, right?
No, not in Hot Work. Nope.
Oh, okay.
I did in a different company in between, but no, Hot Work I was all by myself. I had ultimately sold the company, so yeah, like that was then now they own it, not me. But
how long was Hot Work operating and you running that show before you were acquired?
About 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it was interesting. The deal, business deals they look different to everyone. Acquisitions, I've learned that they're not all, like, hey, I'm buying this, here's your money, see you later. The deal that we had was like more of a licensing deal. So it was like, we want to license this brand, see how it does with our company, and like license all the patterns you've come up with and all these things, but we're going to make the clothes. We're not going to use your clothes you made. We like legally especially with an FRC, which is like a very regulated,
right.
commodity. So they said, we're going to see how this goes, and we're going to track like sales and things like that. And if it works out, then, we'll ultimately adopt it.
And that went obviously pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, we're still actually in that period because that was in 2019.
Okay.
So we're still in the first couple of years. But yeah, things are good.
That was the right decision.
Yeah, for sure. I think, now I think I questioned it, but now I see where I'm at, and I can't imagine doing anything different now. It's all about the sparkles now. Yeah. So, people all the time are like, yeah, like, can you put sparkles on FRCs? I'm like, I'm pretty sure that will melt right into your skin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think somewhere deep down I must have known. I think where I felt limited in hot work was, because I'm a very like right brain, left brain person. I love math and numbers, but I love being creative and designing and coming up with, things that are out of the box. And in the world of hot work, like, you were still very regulated, like you said, where it had to be long sleeves. It had to cover your body. Generally it has to be navy blue, yeah. Depending on what color, or red or whatever color it is. So there was a lot of times where I felt frustrations or roadblocks because I was like, man, I just want to do this, or like, it's also a very antiquated industry. A lot of people who have been there a long time, and it hasn't seen a lot of change. So I think at first it was hard for everyone to adopt the concept, right? Or, the concept of women's specific clothing is one thing. Like, yeah, that makes sense. But for it to be like a little fashionable, a little out of the box, that some people like really didn't like that. But
put you in a straitjacket.
Yeah, right.
So you talked about your mom kind of instilling the traditional route. Where did the love of fashion? I know you said you started at a younger age, and you did take the traditional route originally.
Yeah.
For your college, get a good degree. When did you in your mind, start to pivot those thoughts over to the designing phase? Yeah,
so that's interesting. And talking about safety nets, I feel like the best analogy is this is like, this is horrible to say. You get, when you're younger and you have a boyfriend, but you kind of want to break up with them, but you get your new boyfriend first before you can move on to the next one. Sorry, Hunter, do not get mad at me for saying that.
Sorry, Hunter.
I have a very serious boyfriend now, and that is not what I'm doing now. But, I always kind of like dip my toe in the next thing that I wanted to maybe play around with before I actually got there. So working as an engineer, started doing hot work on the side. When I was still just doing hot work and things were going well, but I was, like I said, kind of not bored, but a little bit like, hey, I have more creativity I want to put out there. That's when I started to look a little bit more at overseas manufacturers, and because all of our hot work goods were made in the U.S., that was like very important to me. But there's obviously a lot of manufacturers overseas, and so I kind of just started talking to people and getting samples made of just random things. I remember the first next thing that kind of ultimately led to my next company was I randomly saw on Etsy this vintage sweater that said the name Mary all over it. It said Mary, 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 Mary. And I was like, that's cool. I wish it said Jamie all over it. But, that doesn't exist. And I looked everywhere for a sweater that you could put your name on it. And I couldn't find it. So I started talking to manufacturers, and I found one to make me a sample that said Jamie. And then I kind of formed that into like a small little company that ultimately became Sparkle City, which was my next company. Yeah, that was the precursor of Queen of Sparkles. But so I started making these samples, and then after I made the Jamie one, that led into like football season. And so this is still before hot work was sold. I'm still doing hot work full time. but I was like, hey, I really want like a sweater that says like go or hoot at or something with, because there's not a lot of good, cool clothes to wear to games. But I'm going to put sparkles on it. And I had one of those people make that. And so then, throw it up on your Instagram, you sell 100 of them and you're like, oh, maybe this is something. Yeah, this has something. So that's kind of how I always had that next step safety net. And so,
but was it really a safety net?
Maybe not, but I think
in your mind it might have been.
I think I think in my mind I just always said I'll give it a year, or it's like I kind of play in like the next year always. So it's like, okay, I'll give it a year where I'm not working as an engineer and see what happens. And I think I mentioned, but right at that year mark, I can remember I took 3 interviews, engineering interviews, a couple of companies here local, 2 in Covington and 1 New Orleans, because I was like, well, let me just see if I could get a job if I had to, and I got one offer and I turned it down. I wasn't ready.
Was that you just being in your scared space? Of I got you.
Of course. You're always gonna, you always, I don't know. And especially, me, I'm not married yet. Love you, Hunter, but we're not married yet. And my mom always taught me like, you need to support yourself. So when you're out there supporting yourself, you have to make sure you have money to, live.
Feed yourself.
To feed yourself, right? To have a roof over your head.
Let me ask you this. Whenever because you talk about being raised in like this traditional path, right? And then you went that route, you got your engineering degree, you go to work as an engineer for a big company, and then you told your mom you were going to quit being an engineer. How'd that conversation go? She said, when I first, and I mind you, I was working a lot at the time. Like I was strained at work. Like they were using me a lot for more than I should have been, because I felt like I was, I was single at the time. A lot of my coworkers my age were like newly married or whatever. And because I was going in on Saturdays, I was doing a lot of stuff. So I was not happy in that sense anyway. So, as a mother, you hear your daughter's not happy. That's one thing. But she said, this is the money you have saved. She laid it out for me. She was a financial advisor, like I said. Right. And she said, this will last you a year. So, but you have to you probably have to live with us. So I did. I moved back in with my parents. I was 29 years old. That's not fun. No.
When you're 29. Or at any age, really. But, and I, because I thought, well, I need to make this go further and I'm going to have to use this for business expenses and stuff like that. It really wasn't, and actually the first jump wasn't that big of a deal. I think she just thought she's going to go back, and for years after, she said, even after when I was interviewing or like even years after that, she would say, have you looked at jobs, It wasn't until probably a year into Sparkle City, which was, like almost a little over a year ago, that she was like, okay, I guess you can you're going to be fine with whatever you're coming up with next, And then now she's very, very proud and comes and shops all the time. And then tries to Venmo me. I'm like, here, it's fine. You can have it.
That's funny. So I kind of want to ask you about this human trick.
Oh, I was wondering. I know.
We have YouTube, so
yeah. Okay. Honestly, apparently, less than 1% of the population can do this. But look,
that's impressive.
Try it. Y'all have to try it now. See, you can't do it.
Way too far away. Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah, I think I'm like, none of y'all can do it. I've only met one other person in the whole world that can do that.
Wow.
So top 99.9%.
Yes.
Yeah,
key to success.
I guess for everybody that's not watching on YouTube, Jamie just licked her elbow.
Go check
it was on a movie one time when I was a kid, no one can do this. And I was like, wait, that's weird. I can.
So you being in the fashion industry and knowing your engineering background, we talked about some of the attributes that have led you to success. And obviously you said work ethic would be probably number one. and then the ability to multitask, which I feel like would go into both of these realms of what you do from your petroleum engineering background, and also I can't even imagine in fashion because I know nothing about it, but I can only imagine. Can you give a little insight of how much multitasking and what do you need to do to be able to do that, to build your team and give those traits to them as well?
Yeah, I think that was something that I was told early on working for Chevron, like a boss or something was like, this is your biggest quality or like your best quality. And I never really thought about it. I always heard that like women are better at that than men or something in general. But I think that especially as an engineer, you can get like very bogged down in the details of things. And I think that's where I don't really have that. So I'm able to like manage several things at once. I think it really comes in handy now, less of as like an actual fashion designer, but more of like a business owner. I'm on my way here. I get a call. It's like the air conditioning's out at the new warehouse we just moved into Monday. So I got to call that person, and then, I'm coming to do a podcast. But then someone's texting me over, hey, this new account wants to order this and that. It's like just all day long. You're getting, and I try to train people. And this is hard, but like, you try to silo people and like you manage these things, and like train each other to like when a question arises, go to that person and don't always come to me. But I think as a smaller business, it's just generally like everything gets kind of like mumble jumbled together. So I think as you said, like how can I train other people to be good at that? I think it's really just like, what is the rule? It's like the 90 or 80-20 rule or something. It's like when you're 80% there, like that's all you need really to be successful. Like you don't need to think about having everything perfect or getting to doing everything to its like 100% fullest, because it's not going to make that big of a difference after a certain point.
So we just dropped a podcast this morning that fully wrapped around this, from a younger female to a General Haygood that we interviewed earlier in our podcast. She said not having to be A+ at every single thing you do. You can be a B- entrepreneur and an A+ mom and a B- wife, and all those things coming together makes you a good human being.
Yeah.
Overall,
yep.
Burning yourself out. How do you, with that, knowing you build a team? That was one of the things that I kept coming back to and reading about you, is you have to build your team up around you and giving them days off for burnout.
Yes.
Is that's a big thing for you in this industry, I imagine?
Yeah. I mean, well, I think in any new small business where you've got, it's not even like any of the goals or achievements or things that we're trying to accomplish are we are the ones setting them, right? It's not like someone's over us, like, you need to make this much money this month or whatever. I mean, we do have stakeholders, but we set these goals, and I'm a goal-driven person. I think that's an engineer trait. I think that's coming from a big corporation. So I try to like everyone in our team rally around that. But I think I like to sort of have this environment where like if we meet this goal, like then we can like have fun, for a couple of days. And so that generally happens like in the end of the month. Last week was like after April was our biggest month yet, and so last week like we each took like a day off here and there. Like I went down to Jazz Fest. I know my friend like laid out by the pool one day, like just so it's just kind of I'm not anytime anyone's like, hey, can I take a couple days off or hours off for this or do this and this, it's like sure. Like I think that also plays into, I mean, I won't say with a new business this is this case, because I think there's always something to be doing. But I do think that a lot of times, like, there's only so many productive hours in a day. So you don't need to, I mean, like, think back, like, how many meetings do you sit in that you, like, accomplish nothing, right? You're just talking about the same thing that you've talked about for...
We have meetings about meetings.
I know. Think about that. And I read a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's a really good one for just life.
I've read it.
You've read it. It's great. It's my favorite book. And that book is actually why I quit my job, my first job. I read it, and then I was like, you know what? I got to do this. But so anyone out there should read it. It's a good one, but it teaches you that there's like literally only, I think, 4 productive hours in a day. So, you know, just say, okay, I got my 4 hours in today, like on to tomorrow. It'll be there.
To the petroleum industry, do you think in a more creative industry that you need more time off to kind of prevent yourself from like going into a block of being creative and the different?
Yes. And I've recently only, like me personally, I've recently felt that more than I have, you know, because I like design each collection. Right now I'm designing our Christmas collection or our holiday collection. And yeah, I felt a lot of like just not focused as I normally am on that process. And I think, and so I've, you know, took some time off this weekend. And I think that that's absolutely what it is. You know, you get so caught up in it that you have to just remind yourself, like, it's just sparkly clothes.
Take a step back.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of generational too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like folks our age for sure. You know, you're the same age as all of us. He's pretty old, but we're all pretty close.
Facts.
I think it's a generational thing too, and I think COVID has really kind of helped prove it to the rest of the world and other generations that with the technology we have available now, like you can really kind of work whenever you feel like working. Like whenever you feel like you're most productive, you can work and be productive. I think sometimes where a lot of companies, big companies in particular, are finding some struggles is that they want you at the office from 6 to 6 or from, you know, 5 to 5 or whatever. And you might only be productive like 4 or 5 of those hours like you're talking about.
Yeah.
But that doesn't leave you any time to do anything else, right? It doesn't leave you any time to be creative and try to do little side jobs and try to propel yourself in whatever direction you want to go personally. Kind of hit the nail on the head with that, I think.
I think kind of speaking to that, when I was still working, I had my last boss at when I was an engineer was a woman, and she said, I went to her and I was like, I started this company, this clothing company on the side, so I'm pretty much going to take all of my vacation days for it. And she was like so supportive of that. I think like if you are in a position right now where you're still in like a company, a corporation, you know, I think being honest with your superiors is like very important in that, and saying like, you know, I'm just going to take the day off. Like, it's not going to be like a me squeezing it in between meetings type thing or squeezing it in at lunch. It's like I need these days, you know, if that is something that you want to do.
I want to add something to that because she got the mentorship from a boss that was fully supportive. I've been on the other side of that where the bosses were almost hindering you or putting the thumb on you to make it harder for you to chase your dreams. For anybody listening that has the boss on my end, do not stop. Do not stop. If you get that boss like Jamie has that almost helps propel you to chase your dream, that's great. But if you're on the other end of that, do not stop chasing your dream, because you have someone that maybe didn't chase theirs and is maybe, I don't know their reasoning, but if they're putting a thumb on you, keep hustling, keep rolling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's extraordinarily important. A lot of people will stop. A lot of people won't take the leap that you took, or they won't, you know, continue to pursue their dream because they're frankly terrified to leave something that's consistent, something that's steady, something that's, you know, proven to work for generations. They don't want to, you know, whenever you get into a role like that, a lot of people are terrified, absolutely terrified to give that up.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the support, sometimes you just got to just say, you know, fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah.
That's so important, man.
But I think having that like doer attitude is just what, and I think I added that as a follow-up later as like my most important quality or whatever. It's like, it's just no matter what, like just put the foot in front of the other foot, like just do it and then take the next step, like whatever it is, just, you know, kind of have an idea of where you want to go, whether it's like an idea, like, or something, and just do it. Just start having the conversation, start, you know, researching it, whatever it is. Because a lot of people get bogged down before that part of it. It's like just the idea, and they don't even, but it's then like starting to put anything past that, you're already ahead of where you were. So I think you know, and the next thing you know, you've done enough research, and then you're on the phone calling people, and then you're, You know, you have a sample in front of you.
It's interesting coming from an engineer, because it sounds like what you're saying is not to overthink it.
You're right.
I'm in school for engineering, and I know overthinking it is kind of one of our qualities.
No, I think I alluded to that earlier. I think that is part of the stigma, or like what's not right about the engineering community in general. I mean,
Right.
I'm not going to say you're designing some offshore platform and you shouldn't overthink it. For sure, overthink that. But, you know, not like I said, a lot of the day-to-day things that you're doing, like you got to get 80% there. And then that's funny you said that about the other guest, because I feel in college I used to say there's a lot of life. Back then it was like a 90 or above was an A. Now I think it's like you have to have a 98 or something. But there's a lot of life between the 90 and 100, you know, and that's what the answer. You still have all A's. You still have 4.0.
Yeah, I tell my daughter she's a ripe 12, but I don't pound into her that she needs to bring a 4.0 home at all times. I just tell her, honestly, if your full effort's there and it comes in at a 90, then I'm very proud of that 90 if your full potential was there.
Yeah. And generally that type of person will end up, they'll want it for themselves. It's not for you. And that's what, I mean, that's another quality I think that entrepreneurs have to have. They have to be doing it for themselves and not for anyone else.
So all this talk actually leads me into the next part of what I really wanted to dive into, and that's one word: failure.
I know it.
So we know that in life, whether it's in the petro side or it's in designing side, you're gonna hit the wall, right? You're gonna hit it hard, and you have to figure out and pivot and dig your heels in and cry and stand up and whatever else comes. So talk to a little bit about where a moment of failure happened, or where it maybe felt like failure, and then how'd you come out of that? What kind of mindset did you have? Where did it go? Where did it put you now?
So I think that speaking to, you know, kind of not overthinking things and just being a doer, I think the drawback of that quality that I have definitely is that I tend to do things without thinking enough about them sometimes. And like I said, there's some things that require a lot of thinking. And I mentioned that I had that, you know, I was working on hot work full time, and I had made some samples of some like game day sweaters with sparkles on them. And I, you know, met someone that kind of took interest in what I was doing and said, you know, I'll kind of go in on this with you. Like we can put the money together and make some. And I thought, okay, yeah, whatever. There's nothing like binding about that, you know. And then, you know, like I said, sold really quickly, and then it just kind of snowballed. And before we really realized what was going on, you know, the company, or not that it wasn't even a company at the time. It was like just us selling things on our social medias, had grown to a point where, you know, we were like, okay, well, we got to incorporate this, and we got to do this and this and this. And we did it all so quickly without having a formal operating agreement or having like an understanding of like what we're doing here. Like, and I think that that's really important. I think I didn't realize until, you know, one big learning, and I was telling someone, then this guy called me, an architect friend that I know called me this morning, and he's merging with an interior design firm. And he said, you know, what do you think? I know you're not big on partners. And I was like, just as long as you have an operating agreement that like can spell out, you know, how it's going to look if things separate, or how anything looks, just who is managing what and how, you know, what people are responsible for. As long as you have that, then great. But we didn't, and but we were successful, so it didn't matter, right? We thought, oh, we're riding this wave of success. We're making more sparkly clothes, and that was right. That was the year 2019. So if you remember, like LSU that year, we all do.
Never forget it.
Never forget it. So it was you know, we had a lot of like we grew in that season, but it ended. You know, and then that came to an abrupt halt when March of 2020. So then that's when things started to slow down again. And we were like, wait, what are we doing here? You know, or like, is this a future? You know, I had sold Hot Work at that point. I sold at the end of 2019. So I kind of had some money to do something new with. And I wasn't, at that point, I was 2 years removed from being an engineer. So I wasn't really interested in doing that anymore. Like I'd tasted the waters of like being off on your own, and it tastes really good. So that's when I really started thinking, I was like, you know what, I don't really want to be in a partnership. Like I want to be on my own. If I'm going to be doing this, and for other reasons, it wasn't working out. But, you know, the fact that we didn't have operating agreements and things into place then led to a very long battle, so to speak.
Understandable.
But without saying too much. And then, that was probably 6 months of just like utter turmoil. Like it was like the worst period of my life. Like just.
So COVID's happening.
COVID's happening, yes.
You are dissolving your baby of a business that you helped grow, and it's took off.
That was doing very well, but like.
Right, so you're super profitable.
Yeah.
COVID's hit, so that's like everything's locked in. Where are you at mentally with it? And then take us through, like you said, you don't have to divulge too much information, but just tell us where your mindset, and then where did Queen of Sparkles come from? How did it grow? Like, how did you pass those roadblocks?
Yeah. I think a big thing is just like being a good person and knowing that you're a good person, and in any sort of like battle in that kind of sense, like just doing the right thing and not doing things that, you know, are just to hurt the other person or to whatever it is. So I kind of kept true to that, which told me like, you know, and I prayed and I was like, you know, no matter what, at the end of this, I'm gonna be proud of myself for how I acted in the time period. And that's enough. Like in that I'm winning for. So I'm not going to do things that are, you know, that are bad or that hurt someone else. But I think, it was just horrible. It was horrible. You know I don't know if y'all have ever dealt with lawyers or like in that type of situation, but a lot of them are out there just to make you feel bad and make you feel vulnerable. And, you know, the stuff that you read about yourself that's just like utterly not even true. And you're like, yeah, but you can't do anything about it. It's just, that's what lawyers do. And, you know, not whatever. Hunter is also a lawyer. I'm just talking all this crap about Hunter today, but, no, he's a good one. But
Hunter, we're going to get you on, bud. Don't worry.
Yeah. He's like, I'm coming for you.
You can tell your side of the story.
Yeah. But, you're just, I just can't describe it. I mean, we all know we're in quarantine. I'm like trying to come up with, I'm like, well, maybe I should just start making designs, like just in case this all goes away. I mean, I knew early on in the battle, so to speak, I knew almost immediately, like nothing is worse. Not this company, not anything is worth fighting like this over. So like I can just walk away and start it again. Like anything out there is repeatable, and you see tons of times where people like fail completely, miserably, utterly, and then just like start again. And that should not I know people will fear that, but that is like, honestly, I feel like that's a comforting feeling. It's like you can just do it again. You know, you did it literally 2 years ago, you were doing it, and now you can just do it one more time. And that option is always there the same exact way. If not, you know more about how to make it even more successful. So it's like, and that's why most companies and operating agreements exist with non-competes, because it's like, well, you just gained all this knowledge and now you're, but whatever, not to go in too much of the legal side of it, but it's, starting over, starting fresh is like the most refreshing thing to me. It's not a scary, as long as obviously hopefully you like have the money and the like support system to do it or whatever. But just think about it, it's like a blank canvas. You can do everything right this time.
So you knew when this was dissolving and you're going into, you know, quarantine is happening and business is dissolving with the partnership, you already knew in your head, you're like, I'm going after this again?
And I think I had hope. I think everyone, right, you had to keep hope, right, that like this COVID thing's going to end or like get better.
What's COVID? Yeah,
right, what's COVID?
COVID.
You know, I think that it was, of course you want to be realistic about it, but it's like, you know, hopefully we're going to be able to figure this out as a like society and as a world. So you have that. And then, and like I said, it was early on that I decided I'm just going to do this again. But where the turmoil and the like utter misery came from was that I couldn't do it as fast as I wanted it to. Because now I'm like stuck in this purgatory of a lawsuit where you can't do anything, you can't, you know, whatever. And I'm like, wait, let me get going. Like I resigned from the old company. I like let it just do its thing. Like whatever, you know, I literally was like, have it. Like I want to just start over. But then, you know, there's when people start to see that, then they're like, well, what does she know that I don't? And so, you know.
What do you take out of this, Justin? Because I'm just going to say that you resigned from the company. For me, some people would love being in the turmoil of like fighting what they felt was there. You totally had the mindset, I am willing to let go and go dig my heels in as fast as I can to get back up and running because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that takes an immense amount of like understanding of what your worth was to that company. You knew, and I don't know how the situation went. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like it seemed like just hearing you tell the story that you knew what value you brought to that company, and you knew that probably if had it not been for you, that company may not have been as successful as it was, and that you could just stop, turn, and go do it again. And I think that takes a huge amount of like clarity about your value to that company.
Yeah, I know that's 100% right. And then you think, you know, and if you're not valuable or whatever to a company, why are you in it in the first place,
That's
right? Like I think about the other side of it where like you just kind of are coasting on someone else and like, what are you even like, why are you even doing it? I don't think anyone like that is listening to this podcast, you know, like they're not the hustler type, you know, there's like, someone during all of that told me, you know, there's givers and there's takers in this world. Like just be a giver, you know, like give what you want to give to the world and put it out there and work hard to do that. Don't take what other people have done and just, you know,
be a doer.
Be a doer, right? And so, yeah, that's exactly what it was. I knew, and honestly, maybe there was two sides. You know, you never know. There's two sides to every story, and maybe the other person also thought that she brought a lot of value, and in that sense, it was like, okay, then you can have it, and great. You know, we're separating, and that's you do you, and I do me, and so that's where I was at. It was like, but all I cared about was how I felt and like what I wanted to do. So.
You think that confidence in yourself is important?
Yeah,
for success?
I think it probably it was gained through, you know, doing this several other times with other companies, and that's why I say like Queen of Sparkles is it. Well, maybe not it for me, but it feels as though like everything else I've done has like led to this point where you know, I don't know.
Speaking of success, you mentioned that freedom and choice, creating a life and career that offer you those feelings. So freedom, how do you define that?
Yeah. And that's only something I will say that like probably at least your first year in a new business, like you don't have a lot of freedom. So I think that's something that you gain later. Like I'm just now starting to feel like, oh yeah, I can come do a podcast at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, you know, and I don't feel like, oh, I'm leaving something that I should be doing. But I think that it goes back to everything. It goes back to looking at, you know, not a regular 9-to-5 job versus not. And like, I'm totally in agreement with you that like these corporations need to start thinking about changing that up somehow. I think, I mean, I've actually been saying that for years and years, like when I've talked, even when I was an engineer, talking to, you know, other companies and stuff. But I think now, you know, if I want to take a Tuesday off, I can, or if, you know, and I'm not at the point where I have a family yet, but I know I've always known that is what I want when I do, you know, when I do have children. I want a life where I can, because I want to also put a lot of effort into that life, you know, and So yeah, I think freedom really just you wake up and you don't feel like that weight of like, okay, I got to be there in 20 minutes, kind of thing.
I love that your hustle, though, is directly coordinating or correlating to your want of freedom to be able to do the things that you truly enjoy in life. That a lot of people won't necessarily link those together like that, but I love that that's what you're linking them together, is that you want that freedom to be able to enjoy life, and it gives you that mental success, and then it gives you financial success as well, to be able to kind of pivot between the two.
Yeah, and I think, and then you look back on it and you're hustling the whole time. Like you guys are hustling right now, we're all hustling, but it was fun, so you had a great time doing it.
We're having a blast
the whole time, right?
We love this.
So I'm trying to be more cognizant of the journey that we're currently sitting in. Some people, we ask our guests this all the time, were you conscious through the journey, or then when you got there, you kind of like, whoa, I made it? Some people are like that. They don't realize that they've been in that 5-year, trenches, but it's fun, like the ride. I know it's got ups and downs. I mean, we'll be on the phone and we're like, man, today was rough and emotional. Yeah. And then the next day we're like, yes, woo, and we're riding to the top, and it feels great being able to feel that roller coaster.
Yeah,
I know it's emotional,
but the highs are nothing without the lows. You don't feel how great, a good day is without having a shitty day right before it, So yeah, you're right. You have to just embrace it all somehow. The shitty days are not always easy to embrace, but
beyond the operating agreement, because I've worked in partnerships that have dissolved, some badly, some amicably, where it was fine. Like everybody, still to this day talks. I'm in partnerships now with the gentleman sitting in this room with me. Where do you feel like there could have been a pivot point, or maybe a characteristic that could have saved? Do you think?
I think positive props to Hunter. He said early on, he was like, you guys need an operating agreement. I think if we had just sat down and done that.
The clarity part of it?
Yeah. But I do think regardless, I would have wanted to separate when I did. It was not just because, there was some personal reasons or some whatever reasons, but I was living in New Orleans when we started, and I had moved to Baton Rouge. And so it just we were keeping stuff in New Orleans. I wasn't going to drive there every day. And so it just made sense. But that, it would have been a lot cleaner, I think, if we would have had something to look to, okay, now what happens? Do you buy me out, or I buy you out, or how does this work? So yeah, I think just doing that, but it's never too late to do it. It was the point when I said, okay, I want to separate. And then, obviously that makes people a little shell shocked. I don't blame her for feeling like, well, what, and even though I thought I had explained it before, but, but then at that point, then I start to realize, well, it benefits me now that I don't have an operating agreement, so I'm not going to sign anything right now. At that point, she was trying to get me to sign non-competes, and I was like, wait, no, we didn't before, so I'm not going to give you that now. Yeah. So I think, but it's, I didn't go into it thinking, oh, we're going to separate or anything. We didn't have a clear, I'm sure when you guys made this partnership, you had a clear picture of what you were trying to accomplish and do, and what y'all wanted to.
Communication is what, for us, keeps us as a lifeline.
The
good, the bad, the ugly. We discuss it daily, weekly, bi-weekly. Our communication is very high, so we hash. So there's nothing boiling in the background. We get all those things out pretty quickly.
Right.
That's so funny too, because we'll act like as brothers or sisters or whatever. There's times, probably me more than him, but if I can tell that something's not right, I'll call him and be like, hey, what's the matter with you? What's your problem? And he did the same thing to me last week. He called and he's like, you're being kind of weird, bro. Are you okay? What's going on? So we literally hash out every little thing.
Yeah, you've got to.
Yeah.
That it's the same even if you're not, even with the people that work for me, if in a small business environment, you can't have the Debbie Downer. You got to see what's. I mean,
Right.
let's work. Let's talk through it. We're here to support each other.
So the Queen of Sparkles obviously loves sparkles. Mm-hmm. She loves to travel. Mm-hmm. I heard you're a foodie too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love food.
What else is on the agenda for Queen of Sparkles in the future?
Ooh, so we just had our 1 year anniversary in March. I do have but this is, since we started in March, this is our 2022 is our first like full calendar year. So I do have some like lofty goals that I want us to hit this year and do. So kind of like the next year, through the rest of 2022, we're going to be working hard for that. We've got our first, game day is about to hit in June, our game day collections, and we're doing 23 schools now. So it's just a ton of stuff. That will be a very, we just signed the lease on the warehouse next door to our warehouse, and now we have 2. So total, it's like 11,000 square feet. And we're getting geared up for that.
Are you ever going to do brick and mortar around here?
I don't think so. We're looking at a spot right now for like more of a kind of, we get to do the build out and have a cooler, office environment place. But I don't think, maybe like a little showroom. We sell to enough stores around town that I wouldn't want to like take those sales from them. Like, I think that everyone has a place in the business world, and like, that's what makes the economy
It's cool.
keep going. So there's sometimes there's like boutiques out there they'll like start their own line or start making their own stuff on the side and kind of cut like the brands out. And everyone has their place.
So give a little plug. Tell everybody, our listeners, where they could find Queen of Sparkles.
Oh, so here in Denham, we've got JM Boutique. Do you guys know that one?
I know JM. Shout out JM.
Shout out JM. She's so cute. And then let's see, where else in over around here is oh my gosh, I can't even think of the name of it. Her name's Tia, and her store is called, I don't have my phone, of course.
Yeah, it's all right.
But I think it's actually in Prairieville. So, but and then around Baton Rouge, we've got Chic, we have Wanderlust, Head Over Heels, Herringstones, August.
So you're everywhere.
Yeah, we've got typically we wouldn't sell, because we have like a wholesale like showroom that manages our wholesale business, and they're like would be like no, too many in one zip code. We can't have that many. But because it's Baton Rouge, and I'm from here and around here, yeah, they kind of they make exceptions.
Where are you at on social media?
Queen of Sparkles on Instagram. Also Queen of Sparkles on Facebook. And we do have a TikTok. I think it's Queen_of_Sparkles. But honestly, TikTok's insane. If y'all might need
I have to stay off of it.
We just got one, and I have no idea how to work it.
But like the growth,
clue.
the growth from it is like we will get. I don't put myself on there, but we had a high school girl come shadow one of the girls that works for me one day, and she was like, I don't know what to tell her to do. I'm like, make her do TikToks. So she did a few, and we got like 500,000 views. And like, we don't even have that many followers. It's just like the way their algorithms and their stuff works. Wow. I know.
Hi, side-eye Jim.
Yeah. It's like, it's like if it gets like the viral whatever, it goes viral. And then you're like, then the next thing you know, we have like 6,000 followers on TikTok. I don't know. We don't even really post on it. But so that's a crazy platform. I would suggest it.
Well, Jamie, we want to thank you.
Has it been an hour?
It's been an hour.
It's been an hour.
What on earth?
That's.
I think we have another hour in us.
Oh yeah, no doubt. AKA the Queen of Sparkles. I loved hearing your story. I knew it was going to be just as good as when I read it coming in. It was a pleasure to meet you. Listen, hustlers, this woman that's in this room with us right now is the reason why we do this show, to help give you the roadmap to build your success story. That's it. That's why we're here. We want to learn from her. We want to give that to you guys. Share so we can grow. Right? Yeah. Share it.
Thanks for coming.
Share it. I'll share it.
Definitely.
on the TikTok.
There we go.
Jamie, I love so many of the things that you talked about. I love the fact that you talked about taking that leap with no safety net or a minimal safety net. I think that takes a ton of courage. I think that takes a lot of belief in yourself. And for me, I mean, it's a very admirable thing. It's an admirable trait, and it's very clearly paid off for you. So I want to commend you on that. And thank you for writing that in your questionnaire so we could talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And freedom, that's something I'm going to use as a motivating factor in my life to hustle.
Yeah. And I think one thing that just popped in my head to kind of close from my point of view is, you're never going to be behind you are right now, right? You're never going to be set back anymore. Like if you have your job, you're never going to be less than that. So like, why not do a little more to move forward and hustle?
Love it.
Love it. Love it.
Get it.
All right. Guys, that's it. This is another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. Until next time, remember, keep your head down, keep your eye on the ball. Hustle makes it happen. But most importantly, have fun. Thanks.
Yeah.